What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast. And I have one question for you guys. What happens when we see all these central banks flooding in to this digital space, right? A lot of people would say it's different this time. This is not a bull run, this is a super cycle, or this is the beginning of this massive never ending market that's going to trend up. Is it? Now, I've always been of the opinion that when we actually get utility, there's going to be uh, a sort of a sort of you know period where those digital assets that don't have utility at all and have been speculation, they're going to die. They're not going to survive. Now, whether that be through regulation, that's something we've talked about before, or whether that just simply be um, where people just realize that the use case isn't there anymore, you know, and then regulation comes in. I don't know, but regulation is going to come at any point, and I think for me personally that will be the key moment in which we'll see the deviation between assets with utility and assets that don't have utility. And so right now we see, for example, Marvel Filing says first the trickle and then the flood. So we're seeing the little trickle, right, of all these central banks, all these institutions, right, pouring into the digital asset space. And we hear a lot of central banks piloting central bank digital currencies, okay? And this is not new news. In the last bull run, you heard of, a lot of institutions hopping in, and people thought this was it. There we go. And now we hear a lot of these central banks. There's a lot of CBDC talk, and a lot of people are saying this is it, where there's not going to be a bear market. This is where we start our super cycle. I gotta beg to differ. I think that we're getting closer than ever to regulatory clarity. And while it may be good if you're on the right side of things, if you have digital assets with utility, then you're fine. You have nothing to worry about because the value lies in the protocol of what you own. Okay, that's what's important. But if you don't know the value of what you own, or you're speculating and just throwing your money at everything because it's going up, then you're putting yourself in a dangerous position. Warren Buffett says that everyone feels like a genius when everything is going up, but when there's a downturn in the market, then you're able to see those who are swimming naked. Okay? Something to think about. Now we see here that the Deutsche Bundesbank and Germany's finance agency have developed and successfully tested a settlement interface for electronic security using DLT. Here's another example of these banks using DLT and trying to settle their money using that technology. Okay, so these are things that are happening. Let's not be naive. Okay, and here Ray Dalio says something very interesting, and I want you to hear what he has to say.
Thing that is happening, like on March 5th, 1933, is the same thing now in terms of that big stimulation. So the way it works is real interest rates are so bad, money's so cheap, and it's so abundant that it changes a lot of financial assets and it causes those financial asset prices to rise. And when they rise, future expected returns go down to start to approach those of bonds and the risk-free return. And so that's what we've gone through. So you see it domestically, you see it also in the currency, in the dollar, you see it in other assets, gold, Bitcoin, and so on. So the world has got a lot of liquidity. And now we're in a spot where we're going to have the supply-demand question. The big question is the supply-demand question, because we're going to have to sell a lot of debt. And
now that's enough of that. But I think he makes an interesting comparison to 1933, okay, where the government started spending a lot and they made gold illegal to own. So there's a lot of history on that side, which is for another time. But essentially, and in this same interview, he says he definitely thinks that Bitcoin will be regulated out of existence, or it'll just be outregulated or outdone. And so that's why speculation in this space is very high. You have to be careful. Okay? Make sure you know what you own. And I can't stress that enough. I say it a lot, but it's something that you have to really pound into your head. And he says here that financial asset prices rise because real interest rates are so bad, money's so cheap, and it's so abundant, right? And it changes a lot of financial assets. So, interesting words here by Ray Dalio. Now, listen to this video by Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen.
An improved economic outlook, and that has to be part of why rates would move back up from the extraordinarily low levels they were at.
There were and still are some very deep pockets of pain in the data.
In the near term, we do expect, as many forecasters do, that there will be some upward pressure on prices.
The economy is not at a place where small businesses that have been affected are able to thrive.
If it turns out that we do see substantially higher inflation, that would risk persistent inflation materially above our goal, then of course we would use our tools to bring inflation back down to 2%.
Use our tools to bring down inflation. Ladies and gentlemen, inflation, hyperinflation is inevitable. It's going to happen at one point or another. And so you have to try to position yourself when that does come. And I think that, with the creation of this digital space, I think that it's a way to have people flock to it. And I do believe governments created this space. And it's a way to kind of herd the sheep in a direction in which they want. And it'll give them the ultimate control, And I think that we have to be cognizant of this. Yes, they are opportunities and they're going to revolutionize our way of life and our world. And I think there are very good use cases for it. But you also have to realize that this will give central banks the ultimate control. And it helps, hide the way they've been using monetary policy and fiscal policy. And so there's a lot that's coming our way. And I'll be, people may not like the words that I'm saying or what I'm saying, but it's an honest opinion. And I want to disclose the reality of things and not be oblivious to it. Now here is Steve Forbes talking about a new digital currency. And look what he has to say.
Here's how cryptocurrencies can rescue the world. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to help navigate this turbulent world. You would never know it from all the happy talk coming out of the Federal Reserve and other central banks, but inflation is a looming threat. Governments, including the U.S., are spending money on a scale not seen since World War II, and most of it is being financed by printing massive amounts of money, the prime formula for firing up inflation big time and boosting interest rates. What can be done? Amazingly, the solution may come out of Latin America, which has chronically been a hotbed of debilitating inflation. A new kind of cryptocurrency may emerge that will eventually be used around the world. Take Argentina, the third largest economy there, and which has destroyed its currency countless times. The country today is in the grips of another terrible inflation, with prices rising at a rate of 50% a year. For a long time, astute observers in Argentina and elsewhere have advocated that Argentina ditch its habitually abused peso and make the U.S. dollar its official currency. Several smaller Latin American nations, Ecuador, Panama, and El Salvador, have dollarized their economies. The politicians hate it, but the voters love it. Argentinian politicians would never dollarize for nationalistic reasons. But the fact is that the dollar is the unofficial currency for transactions in Argentina, as it is now in inflation-battered Venezuela. Now here we get the opportunity for one of history's biggest monetary revolutions, creating a cryptocurrency tied, in this case, to the dollar that can be easily used for everyday transactions and longer-term contracts, like mortgages, car payments, or bonds. Unfortunately, most crypto creators think success is a currency that can rapidly rise in price a la Bitcoin and others this past year. These cryptos are mostly speculative toys, or a way to transfer money quickly while avoiding the prying eyes of government. But the crisis may well get crypto entrepreneurs.
And so it's interesting how he ended with that last part, or how this video ended on that last part. But yeah, I think cryptocurrency or digital assets is the way that we're all moving towards. And like he said, it's gonna help with everyday transactions. And so I'll end on this note. And this is Benoit Cœuré from the BIS. And you can go ahead and watch this video. But he said Bitcoin has failed the test on becoming a currency. And like DAI says, it's never been the one. Proof of work does not work. And the chosen one is XRP. And you see all its connections with central bankers, regulators, despite the SEC lawsuit, which in my opinion is a joke. It's the one. It's the one that brings the most utility. It has value in the protocols. It's designed different payment layers. It's the one. I hope this episode has brought you some value. Like and subscribe. And Bitcoin has never been the one and will never be the one. This is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.